words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. I'll start off by saying that this is definitely not how I envision giving my faith in action talk. Whenever I picked up the slot to speak, I visualized addressing a sea of brightly shining and attentive faces and the Father McGivney Gym, and a wonderful introduction by either Marta Cordy or Haiti Rios. A little bit of applause, too. You know, the theater kid in me always likes getting some applause. Instead, the sight that greets me is a brilliant, handsome, and slightly disheveled theology teacher talking into a webcam. I definitely prefer seeing you all in person, rather than my own ugly mug. But as my mantra has been during this COVID-19 pandemic, adapt and overcome. Say that a few times. Adapt and overcome. It puts things in perspective. As does this saying, one of my favorites, by a 14th century mystic named Julian of Norwich. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. I recite that phrase every single morning when I pour myself my coffee, even if it's like a coffee at like 11 o'clock in the morning, whenever I'm just waking up. But all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things will be well. It's a lovely ritual, lovely saying that keeps me grounded during this crazy time. And I think we all need a little bit of groundedness in the wake of a global pandemic. At any rate, this month's virtue, in case you've forgotten it, or maybe you weren't taught it at all, I don't know, is fearlessness. First off, I've got to unleash my inner word nerd. Okay, so if you've had me in class, you know I'm sort of obsessed with etymologies. Freshmen, you haven't had me in class yet, but you'll learn what etymology is next year. And, well, if you've had me in class and you've already forgotten what etymology is, shame on you. Not really, shame is bad. I don't want you to feel ashamed. At any rate, fear is one of those weird English words that does not have a direct Latin or ancient Greek root, which is fascinating to me because I'm a word nerd, but anyway. Instead, it comes from a Middle English word, fear, that's F-E-E-R, and it has a lot of different meanings. I learned that whenever I was doing my research. So, here are the two I want to focus on. One of the first meanings of the Middle English fear is calamity, some like really big disaster. And the second one, which is sort of weird, doesn't seem to have a direct connection. It can also mean fit for service. It can also mean buddy or mate, like a close buddy. For those of you interested in that meaning of the word, check out Ezra Pound's Ballad of the Goodly Fear. Ezra Pound was an atheist and a fascist, but he wrote some really good poetry. So he's worth checking out. But anyway, once we add the suffix less to the word, we can define our virtue of the month as a lack of calamity or a lack of fitness for service. Which honestly on its head doesn't sound very virtuous, but hopefully I'll be able to shed some light on that. Telling you, of course, as I like to do, a story. So here we go. As most of you know, I'm a soldier in the Army National Guard. Every summer I travel for about 2 weeks of intensive training. So last summer I had the honor and the privilege of going to Camp Ripley, Minnesota for Phase 1 of Officer Candidate School. To say that it was unpleasant would be a heck of an understatement. The requirements honestly aren't too crazy. You got to do a 6-mile ruck march. You've got to pass a couple really simple tests, and you've got to pass a land navigation test, which basically translates to getting lost in the wood and trying to find yourself out. So the requirements aren't too bad, but the atmosphere is awful and stress-inducing. The whole point of Phase 1 Officer Candidate School is to create artificial stress. And they do a darn good job at it. And whereas in basic, they just like create some stress and they expect you to just follow orders. Whenever you're going to officer candidate school, you're in a stressful situation and you're expected to make decisions on the spot, important decisions. And if you make a bad decision, well, you get in trouble, to put it lightly. So I was lucky during phase 1 to get 4 hours of sleep. That was a good night. And sometimes you were like really, really lucky, and you became a student leader, which meant you had additional responsibilities on top of an already intense workload. So if you're a student leadership, you could probably expect to get about 2 hours of sleep a night. Oh, it was lovely. And that's on top of the corrective training sessions, which translates to really intense calisthenics that you do until you're about ready to pass out while you have sergeants and captains in your face screaming at you. Again, not fun. Case in point, one of my instructors, one of my trainers, was a proud member of the 82nd Airborne Division, All-American, which is one of the more elite infantry divisions in the United States Army. So, his favorite number was 82. And what this translated to for officer candidates like myself was anytime he led exercises, we did 82 repetitions. And what that means in Army terminology, well, in the Army, you say a repetition, then you can basically double it. So, if you can imagine doing 164 squats or 164 flutter kicks or whatever else he decided he wanted to have us do. Again, not fun. As someone who struggled with anxiety during the best of times, you can probably imagine how I was pretty frightened, pretty anxious, in a bad way the weeks leading up to phase 1. And I remember distinctly when my anxieties and fears came to a head. I was on the verge of a legitimate nervous breakdown. It's difficult to describe, but I'll try it. Okay, trigger warning, if you have anxiety issues, if you have panic attacks, you might want to like mute this or something, because I try to get into as much detail as I can. So, visualize, if you will, that you're on the edge of a freeway. You're about 3 feet away from the freeway, and you have vehicles zooming past you at 100 miles an hour. You're close to the edge, you haven't fallen in yet, but it's only a matter of time. Your heart starts to race, you don't know what's going to happen. You're literally paralyzed with fear because you don't know what's going to happen. You can't move, and the cars are coming faster and faster. You call out for help, but there's no one there to hear. You're feeling hopeless, useless, unfit for service, out of your league. What have you gotten yourself into? Your thoughts are racing through your mind. You can't get them in order. Walls are closing around you. The cars are getting closer and moving faster. It seems like it will never end. You cover your ears and try to block it out, but it just gets louder and louder. You want to scream out, but you've lost your voice. You're powerless, overwhelmed. The cars are getting closer, faster, too close, too fast. Finally, bam! You expect oblivion, a blackout, pain. But instead, you experience a deep and abiding sense of peace, quiet, comfort, blessed silence. In this deep peace, your lips form a spontaneous prayer. In success or failure, Lord, I'm yours. You say it again, this time with a little bit more confidence. In success or failure, Lord, I'm yours. Again, with more confidence, the people around you are wondering what the heck you're saying. In success or failure, Lord, I'm yours. 1,000 more times. In success or failure, Lord, I'm yours. This is fearlessness. Fearlessness isn't something we produce from our own courage or our own personal bravery. At its core, what fearlessness is realizing our powerlessness before God and relying on His strength to get us through. It's grace, not merit. It's not something we earn. Fearlessness is what made me fit to complete phase 1 of Oster Candidate School. In success or failure, Lord, I'm yours, was the mantra that I repeated ad infinitum. And that's what got me through. So one of the greatest fruits of phase 1, I'm set to commission in August still, even with this COVID-19, so that's a nice fruit. But the most important spiritual fruit was realizing my own powerlessness before God. Knowing that in my anxieties, in my fears, and all that stuff that makes me intensely uncomfortable, God is there with me. And He'll take me through it, using His own power and not mine. So seniors, if you're listening, I think some of you are, this is my last official lesson to you as Mr. LeBlanc, your Theo 4 teacher. You're going to experience pain. You're going to experience anxiety. You're going to feel unfit for the job ahead of you. You're going to experience calamity. In a word, this is God's honest truth, you're going to experience fear in your life. The way I look at it, there are 3 responses to fear. Here's the first one. You can either ignore the fear, sort of run away from it, bury your head in the sand, and wait for whatever is causing you to be afraid to pass you by and not bother you anymore. That works. Sometimes, right? Sometimes I do that. Whenever I'm afraid of something, I sort of check out. The second response you can have to fear is to take refuge in your own strength. You can grit your teeth and stubbornly fight against your fear. Sometimes I do this too. I mean, there's something virtuous about fighting against your fears. But the third response, and I think this is the most important one because the first 2 responses, they miss the point of fear. The point of fear is to realize our utter powerlessness before God. Once we understand this truth in our heart of hearts, that endless part of who we are, we can truly ask for and receive God's mercy. To be fearless is to say and mean it, in success or failure, Lord, I'm yours. So keep that in mind as you go through whatever God has planned for you next. Whether you succeed, and there will be successes in the future, or whether you fail, and there will be plenty of failures in the future, you're the Lord's. He doesn't care whether you're a success or a failure. He loves you because of who you are, not because of what you can do. Once we realize this, we can call ourselves Christians. I love you all, and I hope to see you again. Take care.